What's going on, YouTube? Hit that subscribe button. You are about to get an amazing recap of Fantasy Week 2. We'll try not to get injured. We'll be the only 3 people who might be able to pull that off here in Week 2. Let's get started. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and Heath Cummings. We are talking fantasy football. We are recapping a wild Sunday with a lot of injuries. Derrick Henry had as many catches as Alvin Kamara had PPR fantasy points if you play in a non-decimal league. So think about that. Career high in catches for Henry. He had a huge game. Everybody got hurt. The Raiders are 2-0. They've beaten the Steelers and the Ravens. They've destroyed everybody's survivor pool. Man, what a crazy day. Heath, what did you think about Sunday of Week 2?
I was starting to work on the Believe It or Not article, and I just wanted to put Believe It or Not, we know nothing. Because so much of what happened in Week 2, and this happens every single year, so much of what happens in Week 2 seems to have no correlation to Week 1 or anything we ever thought. For example, the Cowboys decided to run more than they passed today.
Oh, there's a lot of things. Yeah, go on.
The New Orleans Saints beat the Packers by 35 points and then scored 1 touchdown and lost by 19 to the Panthers.
Yeah, that happened. Yep. There were other things like Austin Eckler.
Blake Jarwin having more fantasy points than Amari Cooper.
Yeah, but like Austin Eckler, no role in the passing game to 9 catches. Leonard Fournette had the role in the passing game. That was interesting. Ronald Jones, whatever.
Remember Giovanni Bernard?
Yeah, right. Him too. Jonathan, how about Michael Pittman? Right.
Marlon Mack played like 2 series.
He did.
Entire series.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, what caught your eye?
I mean, it felt like every 5 minutes somebody else was being helped off the field, and it was like the Raheem Mostert week, but for everybody in the NFL. Like they all paid, homage to Raheem Mostert by limping off the field, and then like a series later, they're back and they're fine and they're contributing to their teams. Dalvin Cook got hurt twice. Came back both times. Goodness, Mike Evans was down. He came back. There's a ton of names. A ton. Higgins.
Let's go through it right now.
Christian McCaffrey.
I know.
Left with cramping.
Yeah,
and he came back in.
Well, there were 5 or 6 quarterback injuries, so unfortunately, this is where we have to start. Let's start with the big news. Tyrod Taylor, hamstring injury, and David Culley was asked about Deshaun Watson, and he did not rule out Deshaun Watson for Thursday's game against Carolina. So we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah. Andy Dalton left with a knee.
Can you imagine?
No, I couldn't, but
I couldn't either, but it's already a wacky season, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I think they did say for sure that Tyrod Taylor would not be playing. The expectation is that Davis Mills will start.
I think they walked that back a little bit, that they hadn't ruled him out. But again, it's Sunday night as we record this. Hope you're watching on YouTube, by the way. You can watch this live, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. We don't expect Taylor to play. Let's just say that. So Davis Mills could be in line to start against the Panthers. So Dalton injured his knee. Justin Fields, he's rostered in over 70% of leagues. But do you guys think he's ready to be a fantasy starter? He didn't look ready to be an NFL starter.
I like it's hard. He certainly didn't look like it. With a week's full of snaps, maybe. If they design an offense around his skill set and don't have a game plan set for Andy Dalton, maybe. But no, he didn't look ready at all. And the other thing is the Bengals defense in Week 1 basically shut down Dalvin Cook. And in Week 2, the Bengals defense looked awesome again. It's hidden a little bit by the fact that Joe Burrow threw interceptions on 3 straight passes and kind of gave him some good field position. But the Bengals, and maybe it's just that the Vikings and Bears played terribly, but through 2 weeks, the Bengals defense looks much better than we thought it was.
They are at Cleveland, then Detroit, then at Las Vegas. And Cleveland's defense hasn't looked great to start the year, so it could be a nice schedule for Fields. Obviously, if he's available, you pick him up. But that'll be the waiver wire show. Tua Tagovailoa left with bruised ribs in the first quarter. They're at Las Vegas next week. Carson Wentz hurt his ankle. Jacob Eason replaced him and almost immediately threw an interception. Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield, so that's 6 quarterback injuries. Carr and Mayfield, though, at least they returned, and they appear to be just fine. And Derek Carr, by the way, scored more fantasy points against the Steelers than any quarterback did all of last year in the regular season. Mayfield had him beat in the postseason game, but Carr off to a good start, and the Raiders, like I said, off to a good start. I don't know that there's much to react to here, but if Tua is out, if Carson Wentz is out, does that kill all of the passing options on the Dolphins and the Colts, Dave?
I think it hurts them quite a bit. And we saw that last week Waddle was somebody that was immediately an impact player. This week it was Pittman on Indianapolis. I think it hurts them both if it's Brissett and Jacob Eason throwing them footballs. They did not look good. And I think it would take them a couple of weeks to actually get into the swing of things and get their timing and rhythm down with the players that they have. But poor Brissett, man, that's a heck of a receiving core that the Dolphins have. And he's going to be at the helm. Who knows how long? And even if it was Tua, I don't know if we'd be able to be that excited about the upside for Fuller, for Waddle, for Parker. I think everybody's had enough of Mike Gesicki at this point. So it's a tough deal all the way around with both of these teams.
It's really going to depend for me on whether Fuller comes back. If it's just Waddle and Parker and the Raiders, listen, I don't think the Raiders have a bad defense, but I think you'll be throwing a lot in that game at Las Vegas. So if that's the case, Waddle will probably be a high-end number 3 wide receiver for me again, even if Brissett's the quarterback.
So more injuries. Deontay Johnson got hurt on the last play of the game. That was really
so stupid.
Yeah, hurt his leg. Right. It wasn't even a 1-possession game, right?
No, it was a 9-point game. There's 20 seconds left. He caught a crosser, got hit as he was going down to the sideline, landed awkwardly, and was sitting up on the field as the teams were talking as the game ended. So we don't have an update other than technically he left the game and didn't return.
Dalvin Cook, like we said, he got hurt twice, but the second one might have been pretty bad. It was pretty late in the game. It's an ankle injury for now. I can try to tell a funny Alexander Madison story a little bit later if you all remind me. It's not that funny. Well, yeah, whatever. Elijah Mitchell left with it. Every Niners running back got hurt. Elijah Mitchell got hurt, but he came back.
Unbelievable.
Hasty got hurt, ankle. Trey Sermon, head injury.
On his first carry.
And he fumbled. The fumble was called back because of the blow to the head.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, Heath, give me your thoughts on the 49ers running backs right now.
I probably will. The thing is, it was such a bad performance from Elijah Mitchell, another team that looks like through 2 weeks has a much better defense than maybe we thought the Eagles. They were great against the Falcons and great against San Francisco. You look at the number of touches that Elijah Mitchell got, and I'm presuming he is more likely next week to be ready than Trey Sermon. If there's no Trey Sermon, no Raheem Mostert, I'm probably going to rank Mitchell as a low-end number 2 running back next week, unless we just find out after 3 weeks that they just don't have a good run offense. But he was good in week 1. He was bad in week 2. I'll probably run him back out there in week 3.
Week 3 for Mitchell was against Green Bay. He had 17 carries in this game. He had 19 carries last week. So he was started in 46% of leagues. And now that the other 2 guys are hurt, now hopefully the fab that you spent on him will pay off.
I don't think the performance was bad, but I think if you would have told anybody who was spending fab on Elijah Mitchell, he's going to get 17 carries and he's going to have a carry from the 1-yard line. He got tackled, he had a touchdown, and they overruled it. There's nothing that you should feel bad about at this time. They were bad running the ball against the Eagles as a team. Yeah,
there was only just one thing, is that Hasty seemed to give them a little bit of a spark right before that touchdown was reversed. Hasty was in near the goal line, and then they had first and goal, and they brought Mitchell in. So if Hasty plays next week, I wonder if the split's a little more even.
It could be 62% for Mitchell, 35% for Hasty. Hasty was the 2-minute drill running back too,
and
he's got a good role.
Right, we see that a lot of times with the backs that are playing in those types of situations. They average more because the defense is playing pass.
Mm-hmm.
This one I did not notice, but Javonte Williams apparently has an oblique injury. I don't know.
Interesting.
Gets the Jets next week.
I hope he's ready for that game.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, look, we thought he'd be better this week, but Christian McCaffrey had cramps. He came back. Darrell Henderson, this is another one. He left with a rib injury. Sony Michel came in and was really good. Jarvis Landry, knee injury, probably a sprained MCL, so he could miss time. Hopefully Beckham's back next week. Amari Cooper got hurt in the 4th quarter, late in the game. So we'll have to check on him. Same with DK Metcalf. He's a little banged up.
He was out there at least one target in overtime. Now, he didn't make much of an effort at the target, and I didn't see anything to suggest he was 100%, but he was on the field.
He banged his knee. I think he's going to be fine. Just got the update here. DK Metcalf should be fine. Calvin Ridley didn't seem serious, but he hobbled off late in the game. Deebo Samuel, got anything on Deebo Samuel?
No.
I think he got hurt late too. He might have come back. And Mike Evans. Mike Evans, I saw him. He hobbled off the field. He came back for one play, and then he asked out. That's how I saw it. I don't know if he came back after that. The game was getting a little out of hand. But we'll see.
Mike Evans moves like he's Antonio Brown's age sometimes.
He does. And he caught 2 touchdowns. It paid off. Antonio Brown was horrible. Antonio Brown was arguably the biggest bust, him and the Saints this week. But yeah, let's get into buy or sell. Antonio Brown is part of that. You can listen to Fantasy Football Today on your smart speakers. Simply say, Alexa, play the latest episode of the Fantasy Football Today podcast, or hey, Google, play the latest episode of the Fantasy Football Today podcast. Buy or sell, Tyler Lockett is the best Seahawks fantasy wide receiver.
Well, that's an easy buy if DK Metcalf isn't at 100% in the near future, and he's certainly been I think they had the same amount of targets in week 2. Did Lockett have more than DK in week 1? Maybe by a little. I know he had a better game.
They have the same amount of targets for the season.
Yeah. Okay. So they've been tied. You're not going to sit either one, but Lockett will probably be ranked higher moving forward.
Coming into this week, I had tweeted this out on the 13th. Lockett had more PPR fantasy points than Metcalf since the start of the 2019 season. Lockett had more PPR fantasy points than DK Metcalf since the start of the 2020 season. Lockett also has more PPR fantasy points since the start of the 2021 season.
Wait a second. You're saying that he outscored Metcalf in 2020 or no?
No, I'm saying including week 1, he had more points since the start of the 2020 season.
So they were close.
So
but
you use the start of the 2019 season, the start of the 2020 season, or the start of the 2021 season. Lockett is better than Metcalf.
Are you telling me that you'd take Lockett over Metcalf?
I am telling you that in the past he has definitely been better than DK.
Well,
Metcalf.
I'm asking you what you would do going forward.
They are both almost indistinguishable. I had it that way in the preseason. They're both borderline number 1 wide receivers. They will both have weeks as the best wide receiver in fantasy, and they will both have weeks as wide receiver 3s or worse. And you should just start them both every week and feel privileged that you have them.
Yeah. I think and they only had the ball for 22 minutes and 30 seconds. So
that's what happens when you throw 60-yard touchdown passes every time you have the ball.
I guess so, but they couldn't stop Derrick Henry in the second half,
Right.
But they had the ball for 20 fewer minutes than the Titans in this game. Wild.
I mean, but like seriously, a lot of it was Henry, but also it takes the Titans 14 plays to go 60 yards and takes Russell Wilson 1.
Ezekiel Elliott, buy or sell. Ezekiel Elliott has a Tony Pollard problem. And let me give the numbers real quick. Zeke had a good game, 16 carries, 71 yards and a touchdown, plus 2 catches. I think those 2 catches may have both been on the last drive of the game. I'll check that. And Tony Pollard had 13 carries, 109 yards and a touchdown, and 3 catches. Buy or sell, Zeke has a Tony Pollard problem.
I buy it all the way. It's easy. You just watch the game and you can tell that Tony Pollard looks more explosive than Ezekiel Elliott at this point. And they were both good, but Pollard was better and he played 35% of the snaps. Zeke was in on 72% of the snaps. Yes, they played together a couple of times. Pollard is a good player. I don't know if I'm ready to start using him in fantasy, maybe as a bye week flex. But I wonder, like, in Mike McCarthy's heart of hearts, could he bring it upon himself to put Pollard as his main back and move Zeke out of there in the event that Zeke starts to struggle, but Pollard does not? Right now, he can't do it. But this is definitely something to monitor.
Yeah. If Zeke's 2 catches did come on the last drive of the game with the game-winning field goal drive. Buy or sell, Chris Godwin will suck next week. Week 1, it was Brown. Week 1, it was Evans. Week 2, it was Brown. Next week, it'll be Godwin. Buy or sell?
Sell.
Yeah, I have a hard time, especially against LA. I know it's not the best matchup in the world, but I have a hard time believing that anybody's slowing Tom Brady now.
What's Jalen Ramsey going to do?
He doesn't shadow. He plays almost safety at this point.
Now he moves all around.
I'm doing that based on week 1. I didn't exactly see. I know he had the interception in this week, but I don't think he's going to shadow. They use him like a roaming star safety.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's working. He's making a lot of plays all over the field. I don't know what he's going to do. But I think that
all I know is that when Brady has a big game, Godwin usually comes through. And so far, that's been the case this year.
Brady's going to carve him up next week.
Probably.
But we have to figure out how many yards away is he from being able to break the record in Foxborough. I'm going to try to stay under that for the game against the Rams so he can break it in Foxborough the next week.
Well, he's got to do it in 2 weeks. That's it.
Right. He has the Rams and then the Patriots, right?
And then at the Patriots in week 4. Right.
Buy or sell, Kirk Cousins is a must-start quarterback.
He's got Seattle in week 3, Cleveland in week 4, Detroit in week 5, all at home. And this is a Vikings team whose defense has not stepped up like we thought it would. Yeah, he's got to be in consideration.
Not must start. But he's a starter.
He's throwing a lot, 32 passes today. I guess that's not so much, but that's usually all he needs to have a good game is just a reasonable amount of pass attempts. He threw 49 in week 1. Buy or
He's
sell.
only out there in 25% of leagues, so it's not like you can go and grab him.
But what was his start percentage? 18%.
How much was it?
18.
Right. So that's going to go up. And if he's sitting on benches, maybe you can find somebody to trade for him. You won't get much in trade for him, but he continues to put up numbers and he's throwing a decent amount.
Who would you rather have rest of season? Justin Fields, not knowing how many weeks he'll start, or Kirk Cousins?
It's probably for the best to say Cousins at this point.
I'm taking Fields. No
Yeah,
guts,
you
no
love
glory.
He's fun. I get it.
Not the field, Heath. Justin Fields.
Justin Field. Fields of Dreams.
Okay. Buy or sell. Allen Robinson manager should be concerned. 2 catches, 24 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets against the Bengals. Allen Robinson manager should be concerned.
He dropped another touchdown from Fields today, too. So
yeah. That was one of the few times that Fields dropped back and was on time and put it right where he wanted to.
Yep.
I'm not worried.
Buy or sell. We should retire the Bonanza.
I thought you did.
I did. I brought it back for Cowboys Chargers. I was so.
I feel like you probably should bring it around once in a while until you really nail one, and then you can retire it. So you go out on a high note.
Some would say I did nail this one. This is part of the fun of the Bonanza.
This is what he does.
Hey man,
I lost a stanza.
I lost money on DFS because of that damn game. I was shocked.
You bonanza'd it and then you played the game?
Yeah. I don't think I'm a curse. I'm reconsidering.
Well, that's part of the curse.
Brandon Cooks is a must-start wide receiver, no matter who his quarterback is. Brandon Cooks is a must-start wide receiver, no matter who his quarterback is. Last week, he had 132 yards. This week, he had 78 yards and a touchdown on 14 targets. Buy or sell?
If it's Davis Mills at quarterback, I have a hard time loving Brandon Cooks.
That was his touchdown, right?
Yes.
It was. But he also only had 28 yards in the second half.
Yes, I'll give you the good and the bad. He had 50 yards in the first half with Tyrod Taylor. He had 28 yards in the second half, but he had half of Davis Mills' passes. Mills threw 18, and 9 of them went to Cooks.
They've got Carolina on a short week. Then they're at Buffalo. Then the Patriots. Colts after that. I'm again, same thing I said last week. I'm trying to sell high on Brandon Cooks.
Okay, great. We're going to take a quick break on fantasy football today. When we come back, an early look at the waiver wire, plus your news and notes, winners, losers, top 5 at each position, and a recap of each game with our fantasy thoughts. We will be right back. Welcome back to fantasy football today. Here we go. Early look at the waiver wire. By the way, Laviska Shenault apparently has a shoulder injury, and
he was going to be a segment of the feature of our new segment that I think is very fun. People have been asking for more of it. Is this weird?
Yeah. Yeah. What was his stat line today?
Laviska Shenault had 7 targets, caught 2 of them for -3 yards.
That was ridiculous.
Weird.
He's lucky he didn't catch more. His yards per catch would have been even worse.
Oh, man. All right, news and notes. Sorry, early look at the waiver wire. Let's do that first. So, who's out there? Who do you want?
There isn't a lot. Like you look at the running backs, and like Cordero Patterson's going to be widely available, but I can't get excited about him. J.D. McKissick had a touchdown late, great. Jermichael Hasty might be hurt. I look at the receivers. There's some good names there. Sterling Shepard is still available in 45% of leagues. Rondale Moore, 55% of leagues. Henry Ruggs, 55% of leagues. That's what they're available in. And then you get to KJ Osborne, who seems to be developing into that number 3 receiver for Minnesota. Had a ton of targets in week 1, and no one was really talking about him. And I remember watching the film, and he was okay. He's a part of the offense. And then he was a big part again in week 2, had the long touchdown on a broken play. Is available in 97% of leagues. You could do worse with a bench spot.
I mean, if Dalvin Cook's hurt, then we're going to have to go blow our fab on Alexander Madison and hope that he doesn't stink again.
You want my funny Madison story now?
Yes.
Okay, so in one of our leagues, I dropped Michael Pittman for Sammy Watkins.
Play it.
What? I don't have. You're not so idiot moron. I don't have the.
No, Pittman.
Oh,
Man.
I dropped Michael Pittman for Sammy Watkins. Dave sends me a text with the screenshot of the ad drop and says, "This will be your 2021 Peyton Barber." Now, the reason I did this is I needed to start this player for Saquon Barkley. I needed someone to start. I felt better starting Watkins over Pittman after he had such a horrible game. Of course, Pittman goes for 100 yards and whatever. So I'm already feeling bad about that. But also in this league, Dave picked up Alexander Madison, who was dropped earlier in the week. He picked him up for $1. And I thought, I could have sworn I put in a bigger bid for Madison. How did I not get him? So I checked this morning. I dropped Michael Pittman for Madison for $2. But forgetting that, I dropped him for Watkins, and Watkins was available immediately. Madison was on waivers. So I didn't get Alexander Madison, even though I had the highest bid, because Michael freaking Pittman was not on my team anymore. So
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, you're welcome, Dave. And
Don't worry, you'll be able to get Pittman back, right? No one picked him up.
That is true. But
So you can just go spend your fab on Pittman.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to with the Wentz injury. All right. Anyway, thank you for indulging me, everybody. Yeah, tight ends. You should know that Jared Cook had a touchdown called back, so he's 74% rostered. If you can still get him, maybe you want him. I don't know. Maybe it's not going to be such a great week for waivers. Quarterbacks will be interesting. 2 QB leagues are going to be very, very active this week. All right, time for some more news and notes. And Devin Singletary fumbled today. So did Zach Moss. That is 3 fumbles in 2 games for Devin Singletary.
Believe, though,
Another one?
you can check this. All of Devin Singletary's fumbles have landed out of bounds.
That's incredible.
Good stat.
That's wild. That is weird. Is that weird, Heath?
Is this weird?
All right, so that's something to keep in mind. Moss had 2 rushing touchdowns, but they were late. It was garbage time, at least for one of them. Singletary was the starter. TJ Watt left with a groin injury. Steelers defense is beat up right now. Bradley Chubb missed week 1 for Denver. They're one of their good star pass rushers, and he came back in week 2, but he left with an injury. Taylor Lewan for Tennessee, left tackle. He was warming up, got hurt, did not play. T. Higgins hurt his arm, but he came back, caught a touchdown. Tampa Bay defensive back Mike Edwards had 2 pick sixes in the 4th quarter. That was wild. Also, Carlton Davis got hurt in the 1st quarter. Heath, this is something we talked about off the air, but the Chargers had a lot of big plays called back. I just mentioned the Jared Cook touchdown. That was a short touchdown. I think it was a 1-yard touchdown. But they had some big plays called back. Justin Herbert, maybe he's a buy low right now because I think he's been better than the numbers. He's been a little unlucky.
We're going to need a new drop for the free man. But we'll get to that later. No spoilers. Did you get it yet? Really? Yes. I definitely think. I think Justin Herbert may have lost 125 yards and 2 touchdowns to penalties today. It was absurd. And some of them I didn't necessarily agree with, but I also played him in DFS, so maybe that's why. Yes, I think that Justin Herbert has been better than his fantasy production so far.
Yep. Yeah, the Chargers had 5 drops in week 1.
Right.
So just a lot of, you look at Mike Williams' numbers and Keenan Allen's numbers and you go, okay, these guys have been really good, but Herbert hasn't quite delivered as much. And I think if we actually took all the stats that he, got called back by penalties or drops or whatever, things that weren't necessarily his fault, I think you'd see that he was been a good fantasy quarterback the past couple of weeks. They just have to work that out in LA.
Thank you guys, by the way, for firing me up about Mike Williams preseason and this week. I don't know I would have drafted him if it weren't for this, for my colleagues. So off to a great start. Well done, guys. And to what? I'm serious.
I appreciate that. I'm watching the game at the same time, and funny things are happening tonight, just like they happened all day long. I'm not going to spoil it because I know that some people that really upsets.
Yeah, me. You didn't care about it until one of our listeners was also upset. But yeah. Philadelphia defensive lineman Brandon Graham left with an injury, and right guard Brandon Brooks left with an injury. So we got to keep
Graham is reportedly an Achilles injury. So that really hurts Philadelphia's pass rush. And if Brooks is out, that hurts their offensive line too.
Here we go with our winners and losers for fantasy week 2. Dave, you can start. You have Courtland Sutton, who had 159 yards today, and no other Bronco had more than 38 receiving yards or more than 6 targets, and he had 12. And Jacob Gibbs tweeted that Courtland Sutton had more air yards in week 1 than any player had in all of 2020 in any single week. Your other winners are Damian Harris and Julio Jones. Start with Courtland Sutton. Let's run through these, fairly quickly. Go ahead with Sutton and then Damian Harris and Julio Jones.
I wasn't sure what to expect from Sutton because I saw Tim Patrick breaking ankles when he was running his routes and KJ Hamler running downfield with breakneck speed. And Sutton was able to separate with like leverage and physicality. And I've got to go back and watch everything with him. But I mean, the numbers tell a pretty good story that he was dominating this Jacksonville secondary. And part of it might just be whoever's playing against Jacksonville fire up those receivers against them because they are just not good at defending the pass. But it was great to see Courtland Sutton step up. It was great to see Damian Harris, after that costly fumble in week 1, get another opportunity. He didn't get every single carry, and we saw James White pick up a lot of work. But Harris did get a lot of numbers. And of course,
a touchdown, Dave. What a freaking touchdown he scored.
It was an awesome run. I don't know how many tackles he broke. When I tweeted it, I wrote at least 2. But someone was like, oh, it was more like 7. And then at the end, he's just like in a pile and his offensive lineman push him into the end zone. So it was a tough run, the type of thing that Bill Belichick is going to absolutely love. And I think Harris is right back to being his main running back with James White as the passing downs guy. And Julio Jones did not look good in week 1, stepped up for over 100 yards in week 2. There's this debate about whether or not he had a touchdown called back. He made a catch in the back of the end zone, and it looked like one of his cleats barely touched the white of the the boundary. And when you watch on TV, it looked completely like he was in bounds, like just barely in bounds. And the ref said he was out of bounds. So he should have had an even bigger game than what he had, and really did step up, really helped Ryan Tannehill out to get over 300 yards today.
Yeah, Tannehill, because of that play, didn't throw a touchdown, ended up with only 13 points, I believe. But it was weird. Not only did they say it wasn't a touchdown, they actually overturned the call on the field. So you would have thought the call would have stood. But anyway, would you rather have Courtland Sutton or the big dud Devontae Smith from today? Anyway,
Sutton.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to run away from Devontae Smith.
Well, you don't have to like Courtland Sutton better.
You just think Sutton's going to be what he was.
I don't think Sutton's going to be this every week. He played Jacksonville this week.
No, what he was before his injury. That was better than what we thought Smith was before this season.
Yeah,
sure.
Right. All right, so who'd you rather?
But like when we were drafting Sutton, like one of the worries that we had was that, well, he's not going to get every single target because Jerry Jeudy's there, and Jeudy we figured would be better. And today he just really stepped up. We know Jeudy will eventually come back, but Fant was going to. Patrick and Fant had touchdowns. I think Devontae Smith can be better rest of season.
All right.
Silly as that sounds.
How about Heat's winners? Rondale Moore. He's only 44% rostered. He's special. 77-yard touchdown catch, and he had 8 targets. Do you think he's going to be reliable?
I don't know if he's going to be reliable early in the year. I kind of think by the end of the year, there won't be much choice left. Like they're just going to realize we need to get this. And they're acting like it already. I mean, it's pretty rare for a team to be manufacturing touches for a guy like him this early in the season anyway. So I don't know. I think he'll be a reliable number 3 wide receiver, or as reliable as number 3 wide receivers are. And listen, if he's 44% rostered, he needs to be one of the top guys on the waiver wire.
Hold on. The reason why he's getting the work is because of what he did on the 77-yard touchdown against Minnesota in week 2. He's currently leading the Cardinals in targets, catches, and yards through 2 weeks. He's got more than Hopkins in all 3 of those categories. So I think he's absolutely somebody who could be here to stay for a while. 5 targets and 4 catches in week 1. It was 10 PPR points in week 1. He absolutely has to be rostered in PPR leagues, and definitely is a good bench guy in non-PPR leagues.
I'm getting a little worried about Hopkins. At the end of the day, he's still DeAndre Hopkins, and Kyler Murray is playing so well right now. But he had 4 targets today in a shootout. So kind of interesting. Heath, your other winners are Kyle Pitts. We'll put 2 Falcons, Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson. And Pitts, I mean, I'm just surprised that there are enough fantasy managers who have Pitts and another tight end. Pitts was only started in 71% of leagues. He had 5 catches for 73 yards on 6 targets. Patterson had 2 touchdowns. He had a third one called back. It was a good call. He was out of bounds, but he almost had a 3 touchdown day. He had 5 catches. Give me your thoughts on Pitts and Patterson.
I have always thought that Cordero Patterson was a terrible running back, and I was a big proponent of Mike Davis, but I can say nothing other than Cordero Patterson has been better than Mike Davis each of the first 2 weeks as a running back. And
7 carries for 11 yards, though.
He had 5 catches for 50 yards or something, right? 5 for 73.
5 for 58 today and 2 for 13 last week.
I mean, Mike Davis has not looked very good at all, and Patterson has at least had plays where he did. I'm a little bit concerned that Patterson's role is going to grow and Davis's role is going to shrink. I, like Dave, have a hard time getting excited about Cordero Patterson, but he should be rostered in a lot more leagues. And with Kyle Pitts, it's more just, we told you that week 1 was good because of the volume. Week 2, it turned into production, even with a little less volume. I still think he's probably not going to live up to what his ADP was, but that doesn't mean he's not a starting tight end. He's definitely a starting tight end, and you should start him.
Boy, the Higbee, Everett,
Komet,
Goddard. Goddard had a touchdown called back, right? Yeah.
I think he
either
was
had one called
one.
back or he was just short of the end
one. Yeah, he had an almost touchdown, but still, it was a very tight endy day.
And Jared Cook wasn't very good.
But he did have a touchdown called
and
back.
Johnny wasn't very good, was he?
No, he stunk.
Yeah.
Waller too.
Yeah, Waller came back down to earth for sure. And yeah, Andrews and Kelsey.
I mean, we've basically just done my losers.
Andrew. Did we? I'm sorry. All right, let's go to the losers. Heath's losers are Tyler Higbee, Cole Kmet, and Corey Davis. So are you dropping Tyler Higbee's 87% rostered? He had 1 target today, and that was after he had 5 catches for 68 yards on 6 targets in week 1. So are you dropping Higbee with Tampa Bay next week? And what about Cole Kmet? Do you think he deserves to be rostered? He had 1 target today.
Tight end production against Tampa. I mean, it's going to depend on who's on the waiver wire as far as Higbee goes, and probably Kmet. Like, who is the tight end that was not rostered in 60% of leagues who made you want to add him today?
Not Max Williams.
I
know everybody's going to see what he did, but not Max Williams.
I mean,
I'd have one name for you, but keep going. I got to check the roster percentage.
So I may just run him back out there in the leagues where I was, but I'm not going to feel good about it. I was kind of thinking, especially Higbee was going to move into that we just start him and don't think about it range. He played 100% of the snaps in week 1.
Yeah.
I don't know what his snap rate was this week. Maybe he played 100% and got 1 target and showed us that he's only good in point per snap leagues.
Let's see what he did.
Who am I going to say, Dave?
59 snaps, and Stafford played on 59 snaps. So another week with 100% of the snaps for Higbee. But this is the problem with Higbee. We saw it last year. It's like 1 week he'll be very, very good, and the next week he's not part of the offensive game plan for the Rams. But I agree, especially against Tampa Bay next week. They're going to need some. And if there's no Darrell Henderson, they're going to need options. And this is a good person that can help make up for a lack of a run game for LA. So I'm with you on Higbee. Komet is going to be a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Against Cleveland, I don't know how that'll work out.
All right, Dave, which tight end am I going to say?
You're going to say Jack Doyle.
No, Evan Ingram, 38% rostered, facing the Falcons.
Okay. Is he going to be actually on the field wearing a jersey?
Here's the thing. How dumb would they be if they did not put him on IR and he misses 3 games? So he's better.
The Giants.
It's the Giants.
I know. I think they're fairly optimistic about him being back for week 3. But he's a tight end. He's not going to be that good, but he's 38% rostered and maybe gives something.
Okay. So if it's down to him or Komet, I don't know if Komet's done anything to stay in your lineup. Maybe
no, there's nothing that should make you feel like you can commit to him.
Corey Davis, he was started in 44% of leagues. He had 2 catches for 8 yards against the Patriots. Are you cool with him going forward? Can we throw this one out, or are you concerned?
I had him ranked as a low end number 3 wide receiver this week. I was way low on him week 1, and I just think it's becoming more and more evident that they are still the Jets. So much Jets. And the number 1 wide receiver on the Jets is not a reliable fantasy option. So if you need to start Corey Davis as your flex or your number 3 wide receiver, maybe that'll be the week that he scores a touchdown or 2. But I don't think there's not anyone on this team. And Michael Carter might emerge. He showed a little bit this week, but he's going to have to stop getting out touched by Ty Johnson before I'm going to use him in a roster.
And the problem is that that's not going to happen anytime soon. I don't like Corey Davis's matchup at Denver next week because I don't like Zach Wilson's matchup at Denver next week. He's got Tennessee in week 4, at Atlanta in week 5, and then a bye. I have a feeling by the time we get to that bye, we'll know what the game plan is for Corey Davis rest of season.
Michael Carter did play well. I was watching a lot of this game, and I got to say Ty Johnson really did too. So give him credit. But it was a great step forward for Michael Carter, and maybe Tevin Coleman could be out of the mix a little bit, and we'll be down to basically 2 running backs, and last man standing hopefully is Carter. Dave, your losers. Jameis Winston, he had as many touchdown passes last week as he had fantasy points this week, 5. Myles Gaskin, 9 touches this week.
Yeah.
Weird game. I mean, obviously they got destroyed, and then San Francisco running backs in general, but Jameis Winston at New England next week. I don't know who's going to be comfortable starting him there. But what are your overall thoughts?
No one.
Yeah. What are your overall thoughts?
I can't believe he threw multiple interceptions in a game. Jameis Winston. Wow. How about that? And kind of a disappointing effort from everybody in the passing game for New Orleans, including Kamara, certainly including Jawan Johnson. Marquez Callaway is droppable. There's just I wonder if there's something that happened to him between the end of the preseason. Remember, they only played 2 preseason games.
I know what happened to him.
Yeah, the regular season happened.
The other team started playing their starters.
No,
he did well against Baltimore starters in the first preseason game. He just, I don't know, maybe my eyesight went bad or something, but he doesn't look like the same guy.
Wait a second.
Let me played
just say real quick.
Yeah.
Jameis Winston has thrown 42 passes in 2 games. So that is hurting their numbers. Just to throw that out there. But I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are going to drop Callaway at this point.
Yeah. Gaskin played 42 of 70 snaps for the Dolphins. So lead running back there. He deserves more work. They're probably going to have to do something to get him the ball more with Brissett there. And the matchup against the Raiders is good, but I don't know how we can feel comfortable starting him as a number 2 fantasy running back right now while everybody's playing games. When the bye weeks come around, yeah, he'll fit back in there, but Gaskin definitely just hasn't been producing. And then Elijah Mitchell didn't have a great rushing average. Maybe he had 1 or 2 decent runs. He mentioned that he had a touchdown called back. The ball never crossed the plane. He was just short. It's funny what happens when you're not playing against the Detroit Lions.
Mm-hmm. But the Eagles are legitimately really good up front. This was a tough matchup. We talked about it all week. I forgot to mention Trenton Cannon, probably a waiver wire guy.
He might be one. It just depends on how the 49ers move forward. We don't know how serious the injuries are to Hasty and whether or not Sermon can come out of the concussion protocol. Not that you'd be excited to start Trey Sermon anyway, since he was in on exactly one snap. They really were not. They didn't go to him until Mitchell got hurt. So they really just must be sour on Trey Sermon at this point. San Francisco has Green Bay at home in week 3 and then Seattle in week 4. So maybe there's a chance for Mitchell if he's healthy, if his shoulder's okay. But I feel like anybody, even if he had scored a touchdown this week, anybody that had Mitchell was disappointed.
I'm just going to defend my guy since we got made fun of last week. You should add Kerryon Johnson before Trenton Cannon.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. They've got him on the practice squad. They might as well use him before he gets hurt.
Do we need another
injured prone running backs?
Where the hell is
they like cheap running backs?
San Francisco signed Kerryon Johnson to the practice squad. Nobody's adding Kerryon Johnson.
Added Kerryon Johnson in a league this morning.
Did you really?
Yeah, you did. I bet. Listen, if we learn on Monday,
you laugh. You don't know. I was just playing a replay of last week. Did you not know that?
That was so confusing.
Yeah. What was that?
No. I was playing the clip. Listen to it one more time for your laugh, Dave. San Francisco signed Kerryon Johnson to the practice squad. Nobody's adding Kerryon Johnson.
Added Kerryon Johnson in a league this morning.
Did you really? Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. All right, enough about those losers. Let's talk about the best of the best. Top 5 at each position. Tom Brady and Kyler Murray scored 39 points apiece in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. Murray had him beat in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues. Those guys are just playing at another level right now. Daniel Jones is actually QB3 this week. Kirk Cousins tied with him. And Derek Carr, QB5. QB5. Anything to say, Dave, about Brady, Murray, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr?
We already talked about Cousins. There's nothing to say about Brady and Murray at this point. Daniel Jones, I'm not buying it. He just seems to always play Washington very well. What is it, Atlanta next week for the Giants? I think it is. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's got a chance. That Falcons defense is really not very good. And Derek Carr just made things happen against the Steelers. It was pretty incredible.
He's thrown for over 800
and against Miami
yards
next week. Listen, the Dolphins defense is also disappointed a little bit this year.
He's played the Ravens and the Steelers, and he's thrown for over 800 yards in 2 games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think if Jacobs is out, it probably helps. You know, Jacobs much more, more likely to score a rushing touchdown than Barber and Drake. So yeah, Carr, give this guy credit. I mean, you got like Ruggs is not going to be great, but he can give you the big play.
Yeah.
Edwards had a touchdown catch called back. Waller didn't even have that good of a game, and Carr threw for 382 yards.
It just kind of feels like one of those guys you put him in your like wide receiver 3 spot and get the Ruggs pulled out from under you.
Okay, let's go to the top 5 running backs. Derrick Henry 1, Christian McCaffrey 2, Cordero Patterson, Tony Pollard, J.D. McKissick. Round out your top 5. What the hell? Oh man, and Henry destroyed everyone. I don't know if any Eckler had 9 catches. Nobody else had more than Derrick Henry's 6. Who else had 6? James White had 6. I'm gonna go off script here. Let's talk about James White because he had. Forget about the rushing touchdown, right? That's not going to happen very often.
I think it might.
Okay, then don't forget about it. But the fact that he had 6 catches for 45 yards in a blowout win, very encouraging, and maybe just what we can expect from Mac Jones. At least, not necessarily 6 catches every week, but a good sign if you have James White.
An easy, reliable, short area target who currently leads the Patriots in receptions with 12. And Jacoby Myers really, he has 10 receptions, but he hasn't done anything special with it. Aguilar had the big touchdown last week. Jonnu hasn't stepped up. And teams might be, I've got to go back and see how teams are playing against Mac Jones. I'm sure they're trying to blitz him and confuse him a little bit. And he's made some mistakes. I remember seeing that. But James White's an easy outlet for him. 6 catches in 2 games, a minimum of 10 PPR just on his receiving alone. Absolutely, you've got to put him in the mix as a possible starter in PPR.
Teams should have every single player within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage against Mac Jones. And maybe like send 6 of them to behind the line of scrimmage because there is nothing going downfield.
Yeah, very conservative. Okay, wide receivers, top 5 wide receivers this week were Cooper Kupp. Jeez. Yeah, we're going to have to talk about Cooper Kupp. What a start.
He's good.
Tyler Lockett. Who would you guys rather have, Lockett or Kupp?
Kupp.
Kupp just barely.
Mike Evans with his 2 touchdowns, 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Henry Ruggs is a top 5 wide receiver. So is Rondale Moore. And then there's McLaurin and Freddie Swain and KJ Osborne, Courtland Sutton, Mike Williams. Anything to say about, I know what your answer is going to be, but I'll ask you anyway. Henry Ruggs or Rondale Moore?
Rondale.
More.
And any concerns about Robert Woods with this big start from Kupp? Had 5 catches for 64 yards.
I'm glad he got 9 catches. We've seen in Sean McVay's tenure these 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 game stretches where they just do the same thing over and over and over until somebody stops them. And then they do something totally different that works really well until somebody stops that. There was the Tyler Higbee time. There was the throw to running backs time. Now it's the Cooper Kupp. And there's been lots of Cooper Kupp times. Like, I think Kupp's going to be better than Woods the rest of the year, but I think Woods will still be a number 2 wide receiver, encouraged by the 9 targets.
Yeah, 9 targets, 5 catches.
Still getting carries too, right?
Oh, I actually don't know. Top 5 tight ends. Rob Gronkowski. Again, is he still a sell high? 4 catches, 39 yards, 2 touchdowns on 5 targets.
Yeah, if you didn't take the advice last week, don't take it anymore. We're running out of good tight ends. So until the wheels come off, Gronk's a must start.
But just to be the other side, 437-2 or 439-2, whatever it was, is way more of a sell high line than what he had last week. Right?
What are you going to say? I can't tell people anymore. If you couldn't sell high on him last week, maybe you can this week. I'm not sure because the numbers did go down. The targets went down. The catches, the yards all went down. People are going to realize that he's not going to score 2 touchdowns every week. But we're at a point with tight ends where if you don't have one of like now we're talking like maybe the top 3 or 4 best tight ends, you're better off streaming until you find a guy who can be really good. And Gronk's really good. Why would you give that up unless someone's going to overpay for him?
He stunk last year after the Antonio Brown addition. You know, he was behind Cameron Brate in the playoffs. And then he had a great Super Bowl. He caught 2 touchdowns.
3 straight games with 2 touchdowns.
It's hard. There are going to be some bad games. I mean, you remember we did the buy or sell. Chris Godwin's going to suck next week. Maybe it's Rob Gronkowski who's completely uninvolved, and everybody, it's going to be some ups and downs. But it is hard to sell a good tight end if you only have one good tight end on your team. And then others.
Do you think he's capable of putting together some 5 for 60 stat line games? No touchdowns. 5 for 60.
Well, yeah, he had 80 yards in week 1.
Right. So, even if he doesn't score, he's got the potential to get it done with yardage to make you feel good about your chances of getting a productive tight end from week to week.
What a stupid week this was. Tight ends, Gronkowski, Max Williams, Noah Fant, who scored, Foster Moreau, and Jack Doyle.
If you caught a touchdown or had a ton of yards, you were okay.
Well, and three of the top 6 that we had ranked play tonight and tomorrow.
Right.
Although it looks like one of them's never getting a target again. So
I doubt that's Kelsey. Okay, let's go to the games, folks.
Let's just put it this way. Through almost the end of the first quarter, Kelsey and Andrews have 1 target combined.
Wow.
And the Honey Badger has more catches than both of them combined.
Oh, man.
Lamar. All right, Buffalo 35.
I need to talk about that before this podcast ends.
He stinks against the Chiefs. Buffalo 35, Miami 0. Watch it. It's like a huge game. Everybody's just laughing at me by the time they hear it. Josh Allen.
Believe it or not, there are no startable Dolphins.
That's right. Forgot you do that part.
Usually you say the score and then I do the believe it or not, and then we do the talking.
I'm not ready to say Gaskin is an absolute must sit, nor am I ready to say that with Waddle, but the outlook is bleaker without Tua under center.
We don't know how long he'll be out.
You can't feel good about starting either one.
Look, you got 9 catches in 2 games from Gaskin, so that's something. Buy or sell.
He needs more work. It's depressing that Malcolm Brown had as many carries.
A little bit of concern about Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs.
They're just regressing like we all agreed they would before the season, right?
No. Sell. You know what?
I'm still optimistic. Allen's been a little scattershot to start the year.
So he scored 20 points today at the Dolphins. He had a rushing touchdown that they put at the 1 yard line because he started his dive into the end zone just before the goal line. So that would have been a 26-point game. Then Zach Moss scored on the next play. How about the round 2 wide receivers? They've really been pretty bad. You know, Hopkins has 3 touchdowns, which is great. He's been the best, I'd say. But Diggs,
Diggs scored today.
Yeah. But
gave you 16 PPR points.
But if you look at the other receivers, I mean, maybe bad wasn't the right word, but they haven't separated themselves, right?
A little underwhelming, sure.
Diggs, Ridley, I know he scored, but still underwhelming. Jefferson, he scored in week 1, a little underwhelming. DK Metcalf.
No, Jefferson didn't score in week 1. He almost scored in week 1.
He almost scored.
He scored in week 2, though.
Today. Yeah. It's still been a little underwhelming. AJ Brown, crap game today. These
not great in
are
week 1.
Young studs, and they're not off to great starts.
Nope.
Do you make anything of that? I mean, are you concerned, or they'll be fine?
I'm definitely not concerned about Jefferson. Not even a little. And you can't buy low on him because he just had 860 or 665 and a touchdown in week 2. And he should have had a touchdown in week 1. And I'm not worried yet about Ridley. I wonder if the Falcons keep losing, if someone makes an offer for Matt Ryan, that they consider it at the trade deadline. That would be a little wild. We don't really see quarterbacks traded at the deadline, but it's possible that something like that could happen.
Are we more worried about these guys or Zeke and Najee Harris?
I'm plenty worried about Najee.
Maybe Jonathan Taylor
caught a touchdown today.
Are we really worried about Zeke? I mean, maybe we're worried about him hitting his potential, but I don't know that.
Well, I'm not worried about any of these receivers like not being startable. I'm worried about them not justifying a 2nd-round draft pick. I'm worried about Zeke not justifying a 1st-round draft pick.
Right. Or Najee justifying a 2nd-round draft pick.
Najee Harris seems a little more worrisome, right? And I know he had the receiving touchdown today, but God, Ben Roethlisberger might be cooked, and they just. But if Deontay Johnson's out, maybe that means 7 catches for Harris. Who knows?
That would help, yeah. And I don't know. I didn't really like the way things looked for Jonathan Taylor very much this week.
Oh, I'm still optimistic on Taylor.
3 straight carries stopped at the 1. Yeah,
and he had a touchdown called back in week 1.
But his rush average has been horrible so far. All right, Bears 20, Cincinnati 17. Heath.
Yeah, believe it or not, something's really wrong with Joe Burrow.
I don't think you put a lot of thought into that one. That was
the pick 6 was really, really bad. I think part of it is that the Bengals are committed to trying to be as balanced as they can be. Last week, we saw Mixon get more carries than Burrow had pass attempts. Burrow had more attempts than Mixon this week. But Burrow also kind of led them back late in the game. They were down big. And next thing you know, the Bengals had a chance to, win. So I think that he can work it out a little bit, but the yardage is definitely ugly. He's got good receivers that can make plays after the catch. That always helps him. I don't have a lot of confidence to start him unless it's in like very favorable matchup. Week 3 at Pittsburgh is not a very favorable matchup. But he's got Jacksonville in week 4. I'd like to hold on to Burrow until then and then probably use him in that game.
Heath, did you believe it that there's something wrong with Burrow?
I think the Bengals are kind of behaving as if they think he's not quite back. Because I don't know why else they would want to be a run-heavy team. That's a bad game plan.
Well, if you say how their defense wasn't so bad.
They're improved, yeah. I'm a little bit concerned about Joe Burrow, yes. Like,
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm not sure he's going to be someone we want to use this year.
The Bears threw for 116 yards in this game. Any thoughts on David Montgomery? 20 carries, 3 catches, not a great day, but a ton of touches.
It's encouraging that he had that much work.
Yeah.
So just chalk it up to a bad game. It's too bad too, because I don't know, maybe there is something to this Bengals defense being better than they were last year. Sure, that's easy to say, but Dalvin Cook didn't have a crazy amount of rush yards last week. Was saved by a touchdown. Montgomery wasn't saved by a touchdown this week. Maybe it's not the cakewalk that we thought it would be.
Denver 23, Jacksonville 13.
Believe it or not, Marvin Jones is the best wide receiver in Jacksonville.
I believe it. That's easy to believe now.
Yeah. Well, now that Chenault's hurt.
If Chenault isn't 100% and DJ Chark is going to fluctuate wildly.
Not like Chenault's been good. Chenault's been almost completely a figment of our imagination.
That's true. But because, that's the combination of getting a lot of short targets and a good athletic profile, and tough to bring down. But Jones is easily the best receiver there.
Well,
that was one that the preseason didn't lie to us about.
No, because Chenault was great in the preseason, but if Chenault misses time, this is a big deal. He was still getting a lot of targets. He was the short area guy for that.
Probably a great deal for James Robinson.
Yeah, maybe. Buy or sell, you should not start any of the running backs on either of these two teams, which would be Gordon, Williams, and Robinson.
Gordon was a big letdown today. Really thought he'd have a chance to score. I thought he'd lead the way in touches, and I think he barely did.
Yeah, he had one more touch.
One more touch than Williams.
Buy or sell, you shouldn't start any of these three running backs.
Not with confidence.
Matchup dependent.
Okay. And Cleveland 31, Houston 21.
Let's see. You used Brandon Cooks. Man, what else is there to talk about with these teams?
Well,
injured receivers on Houston.
Yeah.
And I got nothing. I have literally nothing.
All right. I got you. Buy or sell. Kareem Hunt is more startable than Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, or James Robinson. Hunt had 13 carries for 51 yards and 1 catch.
It's a matchup dependent thing.
Yeah.
Although for the look, we thought that this was the perfect matchup for Kareem Hunt because the Browns will just steamroll their way to a victory with their great run game. And they got a fullback dive for a touchdown from Janovich, and Nick Chubb rushed for a touchdown. Kareem Hunt had more carries than Nick Chubb. Definitely wasn't involved in the pass game like he has been in the past. I'm fine still calling Hunt rather a low end start from week to week, but he's pretty touchdown dependent.
It drives me freaking crazy. If they would treat Nick Chubb like the Titans treat Derrick Henry, he could be Derrick Henry. He's so freaking good.
But you know why they don't?
No, I don't.
Because they don't want him to get hurt. And they've got this incredible running back. That Kareem Hunt is their backup running back.
Yeah, but he's not. He's good. He's really not in the same stratosphere as Nick Chubb.
Not there. There might be 5 running backs in the National Football League that are in the same stratosphere.
No.
As Nick Chubb. And when you look at backup running backs, there might not be more than 2 or 3 running backs that are in the same stratosphere as backup running backs to Kareem Hunt.
It's true.
So they're smart to use them both. It just stinks for us.
Mayfield 72% rostered. That's going down. He was 19 of 21 though. That's pretty good. He just doesn't throw enough, and no wide receivers. Rams 27, Colts 24.
Believe it or not, Sony Michel is a must-start running back if Darrell Henderson misses time.
Playing the Bucks.
Good. You caught it. That was very good.
Right? I mean, is that how you feel?
Yeah, I'm not going to start him against the Bucks next week.
4 of his next 6 matchups after next week, though, and this is assuming that Henderson's out for a long period of time, I'd start him against Arizona at home. I'd start him at Seattle. At the Giants, home against Detroit, ding, ding, ding. At Houston, ding, ding, ding. Oh, and then we can go one more after that. Tennessee at home, ding, ding, ding. So if Henderson misses an extended period of time, maybe he fractured a rib, Michel will have some good matchups coming up that you could see yourself starting him in.
Okay, buy or sell. Robert,
maybe a good buy low running back either before week 3 or right after week 3.
Buy or sell. Robert Woods is still better than all of the Bucks wide receivers rest of the season.
You can't say that.
I can say it.
I cannot say it.
I will sell that. He might be better than 2 of them.
Which 2?
I'm not sure.
Right. Like, I'll tell you one thing, dude. I think Mike Evans, it was great that he had the 2 touchdowns, big bounce back game. He also got hurt in the game and came back. A lot of the things that we saw last year happened. This game was a microcosm for Mike Evans 2020. Lots of short touchdowns, got hurt, came back in, playing at less than 100%. I would sell high on Mike Evans personally if I liked my receiver depth.
Okay, and then Nyheim Hines, 77% rostered, two touches.
A fooled you game from him again. Who could have seen this coming? This happened to us twice last year, literally twice.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he had a solid season. So maybe he's just going to be kind of inconsistent. Do you drop Nyheim Hines?
No.
I don't think you drop. His roster spot should be in jeopardy. I don't think he's good enough to where you say, I have to keep Nyheim Hines on your roster. It might be different in full PPR for running back depth purposes. I get that. He does play at Tennessee next week. That should work out for him. Obviously better than this week, but close to what he did last week.
Carolina 26, New Orleans 7.
Believe it or not, Alvin Kamara is the only Saint who should be on a fantasy roster.
I think that's a believable statement, Heath. Unless you count Michael Thomas.
Tony Jones.
Excellent.
Oh, and Michael Thomas. Yes. Roster them all.
Just Michael Thomas.
I don't know if I can get behind Tony Jones. Like, he's in more jeopardy of losing a roster spot for fantasy managers than Nyheim Hines.
For sure.
I would drop Jones now.
I texted my commissioner today in one league and I said, hey, I added Juwan Johnson. Can you make him tight end eligible? And he's like, okay, I just did. I'm like, okay, can you give him some catches, please? I don't think it's going to
Should we see how many snaps he played? Because I haven't looked up. It was 12 last week.
Adam, while Dave's looking up snaps, Fantasy Cops episode, Dave texted me last week and asked me to make Juwan Johnson tight end eligible. And I refused because it was an IDP league. And I was afraid if I opened up the multiple position eligibility, then we would have a lot of linebackers that were suddenly defensive lineman eligible, and it would change the competitive balance of the league.
I think you should have reached out to the entire league and asked them what they felt about it, because I think it's a group of fantasy football employees, basically. I think they would have understood that Juwan Johnson needs to be tight end eligible.
Well, the problem is that Juwan Johnson played 18 snaps this week after 12 last week.
I
2 weeks from now, everybody's going to be dropping Juwan Johnson, and it doesn't matter what position you could start him at. Receiver, tight end, kicker, DST, it's not going to matter.
All right, Haywood, let me speed things up here. Buy or sell, Robby Anderson is droppable.
Oh, I'd pick up Robby Anderson if he was on the waiver wire. So I sell that.
No, he had 6 targets this week. No, I'm going to hold him for one more week. I would drop Hines before him.
Same.
San Francisco 17, Philadelphia 11. Surprising game here. What do you got? Buy or believe it or not?
Believe it or not, Miles Sanders has a Kenneth Gainwell problem.
Yeah, I kind of believe it.
There was a report from before the game from Sal Palantonio, who said that he expected Kenneth Gainwell would take more snaps and touches from Miles Sanders as the year goes on.
Which didn't happen in this game. It was still favorable for Miles Sanders overall in terms of snaps.
He's too
67% for snaps for Sanders.
He's my height.
Gainwell?
Yeah, I guess he could get more snaps in theory.
I mean, have you ever seen Darren Sproles?
Well, yeah, I'm taller than Darren Sproles. I'm happy to report.
He's faster than you.
Gainwell?
Stronger than you. Both of them.
He's not faster or stronger than Prisco. That's the only thing I learned this week.
All
right. Sanders comes back down to earth, but he had 13 carries for 55 yards. He only had 1 catch, though. He had 4 catches last week.
Everybody would be panicking if this is what Sanders did in week 1.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
So he bought himself a little time. 49ers run defense was pretty good. Eagles offense was pretty mystifying. He's got the Broncos he's got Dallas next week.
Well,
so you'll probably use Sanders as an RB2.
Also, Hurts had a beautiful, deep touchdown pass to Jalen Reagor, but Reagor stepped out of bounds before he called the ball, so it was called back on a penalty. If he completes that and it's a touchdown, it's a 20, 8 or something like that point game for Jalen Hurts. And you've got to really admire how much better he's gotten as a passer. Okay. Anything else here? Brandon Ayuk, drop or hold?
Hold.
One more week.
Buy, sell, hold,
At
Debo
least one
Samuel.
more week.
Sell.
I think you missed the window to really sell Debo. As long as they've got, as long as they've got problems with their run game, I think Debo Samuel is going to continue to get targets. He's that short area target guy. He's an extension of the run game for the Niners.
Okay.
Absolutely hold on to Debo. And if someone's trying to get rid of him on the cheap, get him.
Vegas 26, Pittsburgh 7. Go.
Believe it or not, Derek Carr is a must-start quarterback.
Dave hears the buy or sell, checks the schedule.
He's not a must start.
I don't think he's a must start.
He's been better than Kirk Cousins, right?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
maybe
if you normalize for matchups.
And yeah, actually, yes.
So which quarterbacks would we confidently start Derek Carr over? And I'll just Burrow, Tannehill are the ones that come up to mind.
Ryan Tannehill.
I don't know that you're confidently starting him over Ryan Tannehill or and by the way, Heath, if you only count regulation and normalize for matchups, I think it's still Cousins.
Wait, didn't Cousins play overtime? Cousins played overtime in week 1.
Week 1, yeah, he did.
if you just take the production from regulation.
No, I think Carr's earned it, especially if Jacobs remains out.
It's hard to call him a must start because he's immobile.
I like him more than Cousins.
Really? Are you serious?
I think I do.
That surprises me.
How come?
I feel more confident in the Raiders being this pass heavy than the Vikings.
Okay. Even though we saw it quite a bit from the Vikings last year.
Well, for like 4 weeks.
No, 8.
No, it was more than 4.
8 weeks.
8 weeks they were league average in passing, or 8 weeks?
No, 8 weeks he averaged over 35 pass attempts per game in the last 8.
Wasn't it like 38?
I think it was about 38 pass attempts per game.
I'm gonna look.
He only threw 31 times today, Cousins, in that game.
Right. They weren't pass heavy today.
No, they weren't. They a lot of Dalvin Cook. Okay, and then for the Steelers. Okay, forget Roethlisberger. But buy or sell Najee Harris is worse than Antonio Gibson. Or in other words, a normal person would ask, who would you rather have, Antonio Gibson or Najee Harris?
Gibson.
I think I'd rather have Gibson because I think the problems that Najee has with his offensive line and his offense in general aren't going to be fixable this year.
Okay, last question real quick. One word answer. Harris or Barkley?
Barkley.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably Harris.
Okay, great. New England 25, Jets 6.
Believe it or not, Damian Harris is going to be a top 15 running back in non-PPR rest away.
I'm not going to believe it. I think he can come close to it. He could get there if he stays healthy the rest of the year.
I think in non-PPR, I'd rather have Damian Harris than Najee Harris. Damian Harris than Najee Harris.
Oh, wow.
Non-PPR.
I get it. I totally understand that.
The Steelers cannot run block at all.
Yeah.
That's bold.
Even in that game remember how excited I was about how well they pass blocked for Roethlisberger in that preseason game against the Lions? And this won't be an issue. I said their run blocking in that game against the Lions backups was not great. And now we're seeing it in the regular season that they just can't do anything for poor Najee.
Let's get to the 4 o'clock.
He'll break some long runs along the way. It's just, the nature of the beast, but they are a hindrance that cannot be fixed. So I get what you're saying, Heath. I just don't know if I can trust Damian Harris to stay healthy, much less continue to be the lead back for the Patriots.
Let's go. We got 5 minutes for 4 games. Tampa Bay 48, Atlanta 35.
Believe it or not, Cordero Patterson matters for fantasy.
Can I say that I don't want to believe it?
No, I need what you actually believe.
Yeah, I don't
I don't believe it.
Okay.
Come on. I mean, it's his whole. Do you
Do
believe it?
you, Heath?
I'm struggling with it. I asked the questions. Tomorrow morning, I answer them on CBSSports.com. It's a Believe It or Not article.
You're kind of ignoring the fact that Mike Davis had 7 catches today.
For like 15 yards?
25.
7 catches for 25 yards, 9 carries for 38 yards. If Patterson doesn't total 2 touchdowns, no one gives a damn.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 80 yards receiving. For a running back, we care about that.
Who
he
had
had
80
8 yards. He had 58.
50 yards. That's basically the same.
Well, there's an 8 in it.
50, 80. What's the diff?
All right, moving on. Arizona 34, Minnesota 33.
Believe it or not, Kyler Murray is QB1.
Well, there's only 2 other quarterbacks that I think could challenge him for that right now, and that's Brady and Mahomes.
Yeah, I'll take QB2. I'll say
I would take
ahead
QB.
of Mahomes.
I could see him being QB1. He's doing a really good job in this offense.
Absolutely. He was QB1 before the shoulder injury last year.
I would like to see how he does against some tougher defenses. To start the year, he's Tennessee and Minnesota turned out to be favorable matchups for him. He's at Jacksonville next week. And then he starts an interesting run. Week 4, Rams. Week 5, 49ers. Week 6, Cleveland. Week 7, Houston.
Forget it, bro. Like, he's going to crush him.
He should.
He's going to. The throw he made on 4th down to Christian Kirk. This guy is playing at an incredible level. It's a beautiful thing to watch. He's an absolute superstar. And he's got such weapons. Such weapons.
Yep.
Buy or sell. Chase Edmonds is just never going to be. It's just rarely going to be great.
Buy.
He was 11. He's a low-end number 2 running back, which is what you draft him to be in PPR.
Dallas 20, Chargers 17.
Right. Buy
it. That sounded like a buy to me.
Yeah. I assumed it was a buy.
This one will take a little bit of explaining, but believe it or not, Dak Prescott has a Jerry Jones problem. We have never seen a game plan like this that I can recall from a Kellen Moore offense. The week after we spent all week talking about how Dak checked out of 12 runs and the Cowboys didn't run the ball at all, they ran the ball more than they passed it against the Chargers. And it's not because they were ahead the whole game. This was a back and forth, very close game, and they were just going to run it on 1st and 2nd down every play. And then, unfortunately, they also won.
I don't know. Dave, what do you think? You believe this?
I don't. I think that they were able to have some success running the football early, and they stuck with it. And there will be games where they are going to continue to do that, and it makes sense, especially when they've got somebody like Pollard to go with Zeke, and they can just rotate those guys. But I also think that push will come to shove eventually, and they're going to throw the football a lot more. That's assuming that Amari Cooper's healthy. Now, if Cooper is out for a while, that could swing the balance to the run a little bit.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question on this game. Buy, sell, hold Mike Williams.
I think you have to hold him. I don't think he's a sell high candidate. I think he can keep this going.
I'm going to buy.
He's being used differently. You're buying him.
I'm buying him. Top 20 wide receiver rest of the season.
So, okay. So you're saying he'll keep this up. And so if you've got a couple of receivers, okay. I'm trying to think of a receiver who's
Robert Woods or Mike Williams.
That's a great one.
I should probably say Robert Woods. I don't want to get too far out over my skis here, but
I'm going to study Mike Williams tomorrow, and I wonder what his ADOT is. Are they kind of bringing him back closer to the line of scrimmage where he's not just getting fed all these deep targets like last year?
He seems pretty versatile, and
I agree. And the target volume's been awesome.
Herbert is just a beautiful quarterback to watch. I mean, this guy, he's got such a freaking arm, and I can't believe the fantasy production has been better. But he's, they're a good match for each other. I think I'm right. Totally. I can't imagine I'm sitting him anytime soon.
No.
Yeah. But I think I'd still take Woods.
Well, imagine if you drafted Mike Williams with a late pick and someone offers Robert Woods straight up for him.
What I would tell that person is that Robert Woods since he's been a Ram, has not finished lower than 18th per game in PPR, or at least the last 3 years.
Which is about what I expect for Williams. So it's right in that
At
range.
this point, yeah, it's interesting.
Okay, last game, Tennessee 33, Seattle 30.
Believe it or we did this with the other team, so let's just do it with this team. Believe it or not, Julio Jones is the number 1 wide receiver on the Titans.
Don't believe it.
No, actually, Brown had one more target. He had some drops in this game. Didn't really.
Yep.
He was bad.
Yeah, this might have been his worst game in his career.
I don't buy it, but Dave.
No, I don't buy it.
I
think AJ Brown's
don't believe it.
unbelievable.
Heath.
I don't believe it, but I'm very worried about Ryan Tannehill. In fact, I'd probably only be holding him if I did, because the Jets and Jacksonville are right around the corner after the Colts this week. But I'm also getting concerned about AJ Brown. I drafted a lot of him. Thankfully, the guys that I drafted him over have mostly been bad too.
Robert Woods. So yeah, just to clarify, PPR leagues, he's been 13th to 18th per game, 3 straight seasons. And that's probably it for Seattle. I think we know what Seattle is. I thought it was a safety, but
I thought so too.
It's probably a good call. I think forward progress was probably the right call. But I'm glad the Titans won. Got to keep those Giants wildcard hopes alive. Thanks for listening, everybody. We've got a Monday.
Something happened in the Ravens game.
We've got a Monday afternoon show. Me and Chris giving you some advanced stats, some snap count stuff, some big topics. We do the big stuff and the little stuff for you on Monday. Then Tuesday we'll come back with the waiver wire. For Dave and Heath, I'm Adam. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Fantasy Football Today. See ya.